There are a few things more iconic in the world of bicycles than the Brompton folding bike. This has been a platform that collapses to an eminently small, portable travel suitcase size, and it's extremely popular not just for people touring, traveling, but also urban commuters who need to bring their bike in their offices. Now, this bike platform is based around a 16-inch nominal wheel size and a skinny 75mm fork. So it's been a treat and a joy to figure out means of electrifying these bikes over the years, but those custom fork geometries and smaller wheels has really limited the available motor options that can work for it. So that's why we were ecstatic to find out about the release of Brompton's G Line bicycle series a couple of years ago. And in this case, they've augmented and enlarged the size of everything. It's a larger frame, but it's also a larger wheel at 20-inch, and that allows it to support direct drive hub motors quite a bit more readily. And it moves to a industry standard 100mm by 12mm through axle fork. And ideally for a Grin, our all-axle motor fits those through axle forks with no issues. One thing we learned with our original Brompton conversion systems is that because of the particular folding mechanisms, we had to pay particular attention to the cable routing and the way that accessories are installed on the bike so that you could still collapse it without those electric components causing any interference. And with the G Line bicycle in our hands here, we decided to give the exact same treatment with our front all-axle hub motor kit and make a Brompton-specific variant of that that is form-fit for everything about the Brompton frame. So in this video, we're going to go over the process of how we convert a non-electric G Line Brompton bike into an electric front drive using Grin's all-axle motor kit. Now I'm just going to walk through the various components we'll be using in this installation, starting with the front hub motor. So this is an all-axle motor with a 12mm through-axle insert already inserted in it, and it has a 140mm rotor to line up with the calipers on the Brompton fork, and it's been pre-laced into a 20-inch rim, so all you need to do is transfer the tube and tire over. What I have here are the LiGo battery modules that's going to be powering this system. The customer who we're building this for requested 4 of them. That's 400 watt-hours, or about a 40-kilometer typical commuting range. These modules separate into individual battery packs that you can carry with you in your carry-on luggage when you fly. That makes our own kit quite unique. Next up here, I have a bottom bracket torque sensor. So this is going to measure the pedal torque of the person riding the Brompton bicycle and allow the electronics to simply amplify their pedal force so you can have automatic assistance. There's a few different models of torque sensor available. In this particular one, we're going to be using the 5-bolt spider and transferring the chainring from the original Brompton bike drivetrain onto the torque sensing drivetrain. Moving along here, we have the motor controller. So this is the key electronics that takes the power from the battery and sends out 3-phase commands to drive the motor itself. And this comes pre-attached to a mounting plate that lines up perfectly with the bottle holes on the right blade of the front fork. This mounting plate also serves as an attachment point for the torque arm of the hub motor, which we'll go into when we go deeper in the installation. So in addition to having the pedal torque sensor control, the kit also comes with the bidirectional throttles. Now, a bidirectional throttle is incredibly useful because it lets you use the throttle not only to get a boost of manual power whenever you need it to accelerate the bike, but you can twist it the other way in order to activate regenerative braking and actively slow the bike down without having to rely on your mechanical brakes. Of course, there's a display that lets you see what's going on and lets you set your up-down assist levels, and a cable harness that links all of these components together. We also have various wiring accessories that are used to produce the extension cables between the parts and to allow a tidy routing of the cables along the system. So now we're going to walk through that installation step by step. So I'm just going to start off by removing the front wheel, taking the tube and tire off to transfer them to the electrified motor wheel, and then we'll just get that front hub installed as step number 1. When we're mounting the torque arm on the non-disc side of the motor, we want to pay attention to the actual orientation position so that the cable coming out the other side is not going to get in the way of the latch for when it folds. And that's done by ensuring that when the torque arm is pointing up vertically, the cable is moving backwards at about 90 degrees. So align that going backwards 90 degrees, and then on this side, find the closest position where that fits on, and then insert the 6 screws. So it should just slip in and line up perfectly. Okay, and then we insert the through axle and, of course, tighten it up. So we're not going to make that super tight yet. We're first going to line it up with the controller mount. So this controller mounting plate serves two purposes, as mentioned. It's both supporting the motor controller on the fork here where it's protected and out of the way, but it's providing the point of attachment for the torque arm so that all the reaction torque of the motor can be secured to the frame without any need for hose clamps or the other typical aftermarket torque arm point. So there's an M5 bolt with a nylock nut that just slides into the slot here. Ensure all fasteners are reasonably tight, especially this one here that locks the torque arm to the bracket. So on the handlebar here, we're going to install the bidirectional twist throttle on the right side. We're going to install the display on the left, and we're going to mount the super harness right in the middle of the stem. Now we do have a few different display options. Our preference is this 650C. There's also a much larger display in the center of the handlebar if you prefer that more centralized aesthetic, as well as a much more miniature OLED display if you want just a pure minimalist amount of screen. But we like this one because you actually can see your battery voltage and pertinent details, and it provides the up-down assist levels integrated with the display, so you don't have to have a separate set of buttons for that. So our super harness is what's going to link the throttle and the display together and connectorize it to match the plug on the motor controller. It also has additional ports, one for a front light, one for a rear light, one as well for optional brake cutoffs, but with this bidirectional throttle, you don't really need brake cutoffs on the system, simplifying the overall installation. Now, because all of these Brompton G Line bikes have exactly the same stem, we were able to make a custom-formed enclosure that holds the super harness nice and visible right in the middle, allows the wires to neatly fold down over this way, and allows the cable to reach the controller right at the pivot point for folding so that there's no cable stretch when the system gets collapsed. So this will plug down to the matching plug on the motor controller. As always with round connectors, you want to line up the arrows before you push them in. The throttle is the yellow LiGo plug that matches up with the yellow plug on the super harness. Display plugs into the green. And finally, we have an optional clamp that can be installed over the bolts holding the clamp of the stem, and that helps contain the wires so they stay snug to the handlebar like that, and it provides an additional mounting point for front light that sits well above the front bag on the Brompton bicycles. If you do want to install this, simply remove the existing two bolts at the front of the clamp, then install these two spacer shims that will fit inside and provide a flat surface, and then the bracket will fit in both of those holes. At this point, we actually have the basic installation complete. Because on a Brompton bicycle, you're typically going to mount the battery pack simply loose inside the bag. So there's a range of bag options from Brompton. These larger ones are super handy because they have these two side pockets, and those side pockets happen to be exactly the right dimensions to drop down an assembly of LiGo batteries. You can actually fit up to 5 LiGos in each pocket, so you can have 1 full kilowatt hour of battery pack on this bag assembly. The motor controller has a fairly long cable that will allow it to reach the batteries inside the bag, and that's terminated with the same XT60 plug as are on the LiGo modules, so that simply plugs on there. Only remaining thing to hook this up and have a working throttle bike is connecting the motor controller to the motor. So here we want to ensure that this cable is routed behind the fender support, and that way it keeps the cable out of the way of the frame when you're doing the fold of the rear section. And now we need to hold the cable assembly here. You can do that with cable ties, you can do that with Velcro sleeves. So at this point we should be able to turn on the power, hit the throttle. So there we are with a full throttle controlled system with power, regenerative braking. That took us under 15 minutes to do from start to finish, even including futzing around with the camera. But most people doing these installations are going to be after some form of pedal assistance. And so with Grin's ecosystem, you have many options for pedal assist modes. The most straightforward to install is going to be a basic pass sensor, so that responds to your pedaling, but it doesn't respond to the force of your pedaling effort. So for this customer, they were after a torque sensing control, and we can do that quite easily using the eRider T17 torque sensors. Now Grin has a few different torque sensor options as well, but the eRider is quite unique in that the cable exits from the side of the bottom bracket, not the middle, and that allows you to install this without having to drill a hole in the frame for the electronics to come out of. It also comes with a 5-arm spider, and that spider is the same bolt pattern as the chainring that's on the Brompton pedal already, so we can simply move the existing 54-tooth chainring onto the torque sensing crank. So unfortunately, replacing a bottom bracket does require specialized bike tools that not everyone will have in their toolbox. That includes a crank pulling tool in order to pull the cranks off the existing spindle. It requires a bottom bracket removal tool in order to unthread the existing bottom bracket that's on there. The replacement bottom bracket has external splines and external bearings, and for that there's yet a different external bottom bracket cup removal tool, as well as, of course, Allen keys and a pedal wrench. Actually, you don't need a pedal wrench on the Brompton bike because the pedals are taken care of with an Allen key as well. So if you don't have those tools, you're going to have to buy them or take this to a bicycle shop and borrow their tools or pay them to do the installation of the bottom bracket. But once you have that tool investment, it's a fairly straightforward process. We'll start off by removing both cranks. One really important detail, if this is your first time replacing a bottom bracket, is that the threads on a bottom bracket are not all right-handed thread. One side is always right-handed, the other side is left-handed, and if you think through about which side should be the left-handed thread, you basically always get it wrong. So as much as possible, either look up online, or often they'll indicate on here which is your right side and your left side. If you install this in backwards, you will destroy the threads on the shell. If you install the cranks on backwards, that's put the left crank on the right and the right on the left, well then after you install the pedals will tend to walk loose and strip the threads inside the pedal mount. So here we go. We're going to start off by removing both cranks. With the pedals off, we're now going to remove the bottom bracket itself. Starting with the left side cap, the left side of the bottom bracket has standard right-handed threads, so that means your whole lefty-loosey, righty-tighty rule applies. So on the right side, we have backwards threads, so we're actually turning that clockwise. So the E-Rider torque sensor fully disassembles, so you can separate the caps. On the left side, there's a ring here. And once you unscrew that ring, the entire assembly slides apart. And similarly, on this side, we can slide that right out. So the installation procedure for this torque sensor is we install the right side cup on the right side of the bottom bracket, the left side on the other, and then we insert the whole torque sensing circuitry, and then we use this locking ring in order to anchor the axle in position. So the last piece is this lock ring in order to hold the spindle from sliding back out. Now because this is threaded on the spindle itself, you might need to loosely put the crank on in order to allow you to tighten this without just spinning the spindle. You don't want to tighten this excessively because then you're going to be crushing against the ball bearings. The manual didn't provide explicit instructions on Newton meters, but really firm hand tight seems to be about right. So the last piece is this convenient little cap that has a cable notch out of it. What this lets us do is run the cable through the gap that you have between the frame and the cap. In this case, we want the wire to exit coming upwards so that it can get into the frame tubing to go to the motor controller up front. So there's two faces on which you could mount the chainring. It just so happens if you mount it on the inside face here, then the chain will just slightly rub against the chain guard that's mounted to the seat tube. So we're going to be mounting it on the opposite face outside the bike. So the cranks are deceptively similar looking, but they are stamped right and left side, so don't get that backwards. And finally, we just have the two pedals to transfer over. These ones use an Allen key from the back, and again, you have left-hand threads on one, right-hand threads on the other. On the non-drive side, the pedal comes out so that it can be taken away after folding, and then it's just an insert that we have to transfer. The final last thing to get the torque sensor working is to plug it in from the bottom bracket to the motor controller over here. Now in a pinch, we could simply use the extension cable and have it follow the brake and shifter housings and then come down the fork. But the Brompton frames, even though this was a non-electric Brompton bike, it still happens to include a cable passage through the top tube of the frame itself. And that cable passage is just big enough to fit these LiGo connectors. So for the most tidy look here, we're actually going to run this cable through the frame. Orient the arrows, and click, and then tuck in the excess. Orient the arrows, click. So just to keep the handlebar clutter down, we'll use spiral wrap to bundle together the throttle and display wires. And that's it, the last little detail of polish left. And now we have full torque sensing control, anywhere from 3 to 9 levels of assist, fully programmable and configurable between what your minimum and maximum power would be. So now that it's off the stand, we're just going to check that no cables get tugged or pinched during the folding process. So we will. Now here's one opportunity for the super harness cable. We actually want to have it on the other side of the block there. And boom. So you might be wondering, what is the difference between this all-axle kit on a Brompton bike versus Brompton's native electric version that they offer themselves? And I'm sure Brompton's electric bike is wonderful and fantastic. I've never ridden it myself, but I can tell from the specifications that there are a few key differentiators that you might want to know about. Now, the first of those is the battery versatility. With our all-axle system, we operate on a very open system and an open philosophy, in fact, so that you can use any model of battery pack. Any e-bike battery from 36 volts up to 52 volts will be compatible with this system. And if you use our LiGo modules, as we've done with this customer, it actually allows you to travel with your battery. The Brompton electric drive comes with a fixed 300 watt-hour battery that's beyond the capacity you can take aboard a passenger aircraft. With our LiGos, you can have from 300 watt-hours up to 1,000 watt-hours and still be able to have that luxury. The other big difference is the hub motor. So we have the hub motor on the front rather than the rear, and a front motor drive has more of a tendency to skid out if you ride off-road or on loose gravel. So there's definitely an advantage in that scenario to having the rear hub, as is done on Brompton's own bike. And you actually can fully electrify the G Line bike with our rear all-axle motor. We didn't do that because it does require adding a derailleur to the system, and that's out of the scope of what most people would want to look after on an installation. But with Brompton's rear hub motor, they've compromised significantly in the derailleur gears. It's only a 4-speed system, so you only have 4 gears to go through, and that's quite a bit more limited than putting the motor on the front, where we now have the full 8-speed Alphine hub on the back and the option to upgrade that to roll-offs or even other internal gear hubs. The other big difference between the motors beyond the placement is the motor style. The Brompton motor is a geared hub motor, which does make it lighter weight for a good torque density, but it also freewheels so you can't do regenerative braking. Our front hub, being a direct drive motor, is heavier, it's 4 kilograms, but it has the great benefit that you can use the motor as a brake and significantly extend the life of your brake pads as well as the range of your battery packs. And harkening back to that point about openness and flexibility, you also have the ability to make this kit compliant with whatever jurisdiction you want. This particular customer is in the United States and wants a Class 1 e-bike, so we have a fast motor winding on here that will let him reach up to the 28 miles per hour that's allowed in that jurisdiction. But we could also use a slow motor wind and put a speed limit in the motor controller to be compliant with 24 km/h or 32 km/h speed limits, depending on where you're located.